All right, is everyone ready to get started, panelists? Thumbs up, maybe, then just give me a thumbs up. Okay. Good afternoon and evening, all. Thank you so much for your patience as there was a bit of a confusion on the time of the start of the webinar. I just hit the record button, so thank you for those of you who are here right now. We have about 21 participants, and tonight's webinar is going to be titled Drought Hacks, Tips for Converting Your Lawn to Water Efficient Landscape. So a lot going on there, and we're in for some great education tonight from our instructor, Frank Niccoli. But to start, I'll go over some housekeeping, a little bit of details about ACWD and our partner agency who's hosting the event with us tonight, the Bay Area Water Supply and Conservation Agency. And then I'll introduce our speaker, who will be going into tips for converting your lawn and periodically be asking or answering questions. And so for logistics, these are your handles here. You have the raise hand or the Q&A function. The Q&A, you can ask anytime throughout the webinar, whereas the raise hand we may reserve towards the end. So feel free to use the Q&A primarily over the chat. And as a reminder, this is being recorded. So anything you miss, like slides and things like that, you can tune in later to get. So one reason we're here is the drought. Drought is here, and the Alameda County Water District is asking all of its customers to voluntarily reduce by 15%. And this is in support of Governor Gavin Newsom's statewide request to reduce. So now is the time to be looking at your irrigation schedules, looking at your water use inside and outside the house. And we know that our customers have done a great job conserving in the last drought, and we want to thank you for continuing that conservation. But any other ways, and there are several ways. ACWD has actually launched the One Saves Water Conservation Outreach campaign with simple, fun hacks that really make a difference in your water use. So I encourage you all to go and visit that link at the bottom there, acwd.org/drought for more supply information, drought information, and as well as conservation tips and tricks. We have a few announcements from ACWD that on October 4th, we will be opening our lobby for billing inquiries, and visitors must wear a face mask, but our hours are going to be from 9 to 4. So that's something new that's happening, as well as our water education workshop with Project Wet. This is offered for teachers in the Fremont, Newark, and Union City area, and details are on that registration link via our website. And finally, something new that our public affairs team is trying is we want to hear from you. So if you have a water conservation tip or trick you'd like to share, you can share that tip with us and include photos, and we would be happy to post it to our social media account. There in the bottom bullet, it says send your tip along in with a photo of yourself or how you save water to the publicaffairs@acwd.com email address, and you can be featured on our social media. So now a little bit about ACWD. It's our mission to serve our constituents, our customers, with a reliable supply of high quality water at a reasonable price. And that's been our mission since 1914, when we were founded over 100 years ago. And we serve Fremont, Newark, and Union City, which is over 105 square miles. We serve over 358,000 customers with over 84,000 connections. So we're very long-running agency and medium-sized agency serving as many as 84,000 connections. A little bit more about our water supplies. We have 3 sources of supply. So 40% of our water supply is a state water project, and this is on an average year. 20% from San Francisco Public Utilities Commission, which connects us with Bosca, which you'll hear more about. And then the Alameda Creek watershed runoff for the remaining 40%, and that includes the Nalcone groundwater basin and Alameda Creek. We have several programs. So you're tuning into the landscape workshops, but for residential customers, we offer water conservation kits and turf replacement rebates. And we're just launching a new one, the irrigation hardware rebate, as well as the Ratio Smart Controller instant rebate, also through Bosca. So things to note are the turf replacement rebate for Fremont, Newark, and Union City customers. We increased the dollar amount from $1 per square foot to $2 per square foot. So now that's more of an incentive for you to take out that lawn and replace it with water efficient landscaping. So as I mentioned, our partner agency, Bosca, it represents the 26 agencies that purchase water from SFPUC. So that's 20% of our supply, and that joins us with the 26 agencies that also buy water from Bosca, or excuse me, from San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. And they actually share a similar goal to provide high quality supply of water at a fair price. So if you are interested in attending more workshops, just like this one, there's a series of more events coming up. This is one of the first in the fall series that Bosca and partner agencies are offering. So things like lawn conversion, lawn alternatives, build your own gray water system. These are things you can find and register for at bayareaconservation.org. So focusing in on tonight's workshop, we're really trying to hone in on outdoor water conservation that represents the large untapped opportunity for conservation in the Bay Area. And you can do this through efficient plants and innovative techniques to help us ensure that we have future supplies needs for our communities. And just a quick disclaimer, anything that's said does not necessarily reflect ECWD or Bosca. It is that of the lecturer. And finally, I just want to pause. Giselle Delgadillo is here. She is our water use efficiency specialist. So I want to say hi, Giselle.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us this evening. Like Megan mentioned, I'm a water use efficiency specialist at ACWD. And if you have any questions regarding our water conservation programs, you can reach out to our team. Here on the screen, you have our contact info via phone or email, and we'd be happy to respond and help you out how we can.
Yes, thank you, Giselle. And we are both here to be answering some of the Q&A through the chat and things. So if you have questions specific to ACWD, feel free to write those in the Q&A, and Giselle and I will do our best to address those. If they're for the lecturer, you may get those addressed later in the presentation. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce our instructor today, Frank Niccoli, who has over 55 years of gardening, started as a very young person out in the garden, and he holds several degrees and is currently a teacher at a college, which I'm sure you'll hear more about. But he has won several awards and even been featured on Oprah. So we are in good hands for our presentation tonight. And for the next step, I'm going to go ahead and have him share his screen. And then Giselle and I will stop our videos so you can have more FaceTime with Frank. So take it away, Frank.
Thank you very much. All righty, let's get this thing going. There we go. All right, so we're going to talk about turf tonight. And when we talk about anything in the landscape, we're talking about inputs versus outputs. In sustainability, and that's quite the buzzword now, It's all about the inputs. Normally in any kind of a situation with plants, it's solar energy, it's precipitation, nutrients, and atmospheric carbon dioxide, and water. So when we look at, excuse me, voice is warming up. When we look at this kind of a system, this is a very complex ecosystem. The vegetation, nutrients, etc., atmospheric. You guys can still hear me, can't you? It says my microphone's messed up.
We can hear you.
All right, good. Okay. It needs a lot less water, and in terms of carbon sequestration, this sequesters a significant more carbon than turf does. The turf structure is about 8 inches, which means top is about 4 inches and the roots are about another 4 inches. And it fills up with carbon rather quickly. This kind of a system here will sequester carbon in a much more efficient and permanent way. So turf, we all know what it is, lots of inputs, solar radiation, precip, water, you gotta fertilize it, you gotta mow it, so you're using fossil fuel energy. 31% of water use in California is for turf, which is a big number. Fertilizer uses water in its making process. Pesticides, which isn't really good for us, is on these turf products also. So the consequence of this kind of a system is a 25-to-1 net loss in terms of environmental damage. So a lawn actually does 25-to-1 damage. And this was cited in a book written by a college you guys probably never heard of, Yale. So turf versus lawn. The baseball diamond that you're seeing here is used for a specific reason. And in this situation, you just can't play baseball on anything but turf. Whereas on the picture surrounding it, you can see that the lawn can actually be other plants. And we're going to explore that a little bit later. When we talk about turf or lawn, it needs to be sustainable, and sustainable means that it should be built around a species with a specific set of characteristics. And we're going to explore those characteristics. Sustainability, lawns must maintain adequate amounts of density, and that relates to inputs of water and fertilizer. If it is not sustainable, then the amount of water and fertilizer increases significantly. It needs to survive significant drought stress. And the problem with a lot of our turf species in this area is they can't survive it without adequate amounts of water. They also have problems with these characters. Minimum of insect and disease problems is also part of sustainable turf. And maintenance. If you have to do this every year to your turf to manage thatch, it's not sustainable. And it's a lot of work. Sustainable lawns should be able to blend with other grasses and other plants. And we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. I want to talk a little bit more about the characteristics again. Blend well with other grasses and dicot plants. Dicot plants are like shrubs and such. Have the ability to persist over time, maintain adequate densities with modest, and that's the key, inputs of water and fertilizer. survive significant drought stress, and produce manageable amounts of thatch. When we look at different types of turf, use usually tells us the maintenance. Golf courses are very high maintenance. They use a lot of water and they use a lot of fertilizer and a lot of chemicals. When we look at some of these types of grasses, we know that these kinds of products are using significant amounts of fertilizer, fungicides, insecticides, and herbicides because we're doing something they don't particularly care for. Grass species want to grow, and they want to grow tall, and they want to reproduce. And we mow them, and that's contrary to what these things want to do. And so as a consequence of that, you have to fertilize them and water them heavily. So this is a sustainable type of lawn. This is called, this is a fescue, and it's called Predator. This has a fungi that they inoculate the root system with to increase drought stress and disease resistance. So I'm going to give you a few examples of some of the turf that might be an alternative. I'm not saying that you need to do this because I'm going to show you some way better alternatives in just a minute. Red fescue, this is a red fescue type of turf. It's a no-mow system, and that actually leads to a lot less water. This is a creeping red fescue, and it does have an inoculant on its root system. This is a tall fescue. Notice the leaf blades on this. Whoever is cutting this needs to sharpen their lawnmower blade. They're tearing this instead of cutting it, and that causes the turf to use more water. It's harder to heal. I mean, it's like if you went down to Stanford and they had dull, the Stanford Medical Center, and they had dull scalpels and they were going to give you a discount. Would you want that? Well, your turf doesn't want it either. This is what is called buffalo grass. If you're from the Midwest, you've seen this stuff. This is a warm season turf that uses very little water. Bad news is it's brown about 3 months of the year. In the wintertime, it just doesn't do well. And this is Kentucky Blue, which is a very high water, high disease issues. Insects love it. So we're going to talk about some sustainable types of lawn, and I'm going to give you some alternatives if you insist on keeping your lawn, which I don't recommend. So this is Bermuda grass. This is an extremely high maintenance grass. It has high fertility requirements, and it is prone to thatch, and it's very high maintenance. When we start talking about these types of turf, there are some stumbling blocks that we need to talk about. Public perception of what a lawn looks like hampers sustainability. People want a perfect monoculture of a single species free of contaminants, and that does not relate to anything sustainable. This is a native bent grass. This is a fairly sustainable stand-up turf. Most people don't like it because it doesn't have that billiard table look. They want a billiard table look, so they don't particularly care for this. This is another one. This is a grassland mix. Most people would say, "Ooh, that looks ugly. I don't want that." And they have a tendency to want to cut it. If you do cut this, it's going to use a little bit more water. This is a native mow-free. This is actually a project that I did up in Portola Valley. And it is a very low maintenance, very low water, and doesn't need to be cut. Interestingly enough, pets, especially dogs and cats, love this. They love to lay around on this and sleep on it. And kids love playing on this. It's just a beautiful stand of turf, and it doesn't use a huge amount of water. This is biofiltration. This is primarily used to purify water. And this is Delta's native heartland sod. This is a combination of grasses that does pretty well in most soil conditions. I'm giving you these just to show you some alternatives of what's actually out there in the marketplace. This is native preservation mix. It's a very beautiful grass, excellent for slopes, roadsides, etc. You can go to Delta Bluegrass's website and you can get these comparisons. I just put them in here just to let you know that they're there if you're interested. When we look at sustainability, we know in the industry that grasses and dicots are excellent to increase drought resistance in turf. And I'm going to give you some. Perennial rye is the highest water use, highest fertilizer use, and it has another side to it in that it is a perfect grass to use with dicots. By not fertilizing it and by establishing dicots in the mix, it has a competitive advantage and does not use a large amount of water. Even though when it's cut and fertilized, it does use a lot of water. If you don't cut it and you don't fertilize it, it's fairly drought tolerant. It is a perfect grass to use with dicots. So they did some survey work up in Oregon and they looked at lawns. They had a bunch of students go out and they looked at 350 lawn areas. On these 350 lawn areas, they found anywhere from 83 to 139 species of dicots growing within the lawn. So this perception, and I said that there were some stumbling blocks, and this perception of a perfect lawn doesn't hold true when you actually survey these lawns and see what's actually growing in them. So this is Bellis perennis. This is a very tough plant. It's very drought tolerant. It grows quite well when mixed in with turf, and it causes the turf to be much more drought tolerant. It does not like fertilizer. You can't cut it. So you're increasing the drought tolerance of these turf species by using these dicots. Achillea, lots of different colors on this one. There's oranges, orange reds, whites, vivid pinks, reds, and lavenders. And these mix very well with turf species. You can actually seed these and they spread quite nicely. You can't play rugby on it, but it gives you a nicer look than just a semi-dead piece of turf. This is trifolium. It's extremely drought tolerant. It's a little shorter than white clover, but blends very well with turf. And this is his cousin. This is Trifolium repens. This is also a very good drought tolerant solution in turf. This is Gallium verum, and this is the most drought resistant of all the lawn dicots. In the past, this particular plant was used to stuff mattresses because it was a flea repellent, and when you cut it, it smells like new mown hay. It's got a really nice smell to it. It's spreads by rhizomes and will take over an area quite nicely. This is Prunella vulgaris. This is another one. This is self-heal. It's a medicinal plant. It forms these dense, tight patches, produces these purple flowers. It's edible, and it's in the mint family. It's quite nice. If you've got a wet area and you've got perennial rye, then you can add glaucoma. This is Glaucoma Head or ACA. This does quite well in a wet, shady area, and gives you a nice flower to boot. This is Ranunculus repens. It does tolerate wet soils and shade quite well. Mixes quite nicely with turf. You can see the grass growing up in and around it. Makes it a lot more more drought tolerant. This is another tough one. This is Veronica Filiformis, and does quite well in wet areas and shady areas. It also does quite well in very difficult locations. These are some more broad applications of dicots. This is Anthemis. You probably know this better as chamomile. Has a lemon fragrance. It can be mowed. It comes from the Greek earth apple because of the apple-like scent of the plant. Oxalis mixes very well with turf. Produces these yellowish and whitish flowers. Does very well in deep shade. Likes to be under trees. So if you've got trees that have a significant root zone, like a redwood, this plant will work. So there are no perfect solutions to this whole thing about turf. It's like the saying, there is no free lunch. The driving force as to whether people are going to have turf or not are, of course, restrictions on water use, restrictions on herbicide use, and these kinds of solutions with the dicots are best used on lawns known as drive-by lawns. You drive by, they look good. Up close, you don't like them. They don't like heavy wear. They are not fertilized or watered intensely. So I want to go past some theory and I want to show you some facts. And these facts are actual homes that they did in the Santa Monica area. And they were testing, they installed a landscape right next door to each other, two houses. And they were looking at water usage, pests, diseases, that stuff. They got very creative on the names of these houses. They named one house the typical house, and they named the other house the sustainable house. And they set up some definitions and characteristics that they were looking for. They got a landscape design. They looked into pests and diseases, and most importantly, they looked at water usage. So the typical landscape is defined as plants that are customary or popular to include in the landscape. They are high maintenance, they are high water use, they need optimum environmental conditions, more susceptible to insects and diseases, and they're non-native. These particular kinds of plants are the plants that you typically get at the big box stores. And I'm not going to say the name of that company that sells the orange buckets, but they sell these types of plants. And think about this for a moment. If I was a business person and I was selling you these particular kinds of plants, is there another way that I can make money? Yeah, there is. And I'm going to show you in just a minute. The typical plant list: Ajuga, Agapanthus, everybody knows what that one is. Choicea ternata, or Mexican orange, hibiscus. Hydrangeas, Ilex cornuta, which is kind of a prickly leaf plant. Photinia, Pittosporum, rhododendrons, Betula, that's a birch tree. Ginkgos, ginkgo tree. Ophipogum, which is like a liriope. And then, of course, annuals and turf. And the sustainable garden had plants that were native, lower maintenance, lower water use, more sustainable, less susceptible to insects and diseases. I'm going to show you this list again, because I can bet you dollars to donuts that you know more of these plants than you do these. These are natives. Arctostaphyles, Erigeron, Heucheras, Juncus, Limus, Panicums, Penstemon. Great plant, Penstemon, by the way. You're going to see pictures of them in a minute. Phalaris, Salvias, Woodwardia, which is a nice big fern. Ceanothus, Cistus, Dendromicon, Eriogonum, Fremontodendron, Halymyoscistus, lavenders, Tucarum, and redbuds. So these are the sustainable plant lists that they used on these landscapes. Here is the pest comparison. So the typical the plants that you get at big box, 11 out of 13 were susceptible to pests. 10 out of 13 were susceptible to diseases. 13 pests and 6 diseases were identified for the annuals. 10 pests and 14 diseases were identified for the turf. So not only is Big Box going to sell you the plants that you should not put in your garden, but they're also going to sell you the pesticides that you need to manage those particular plants. That's why I say that's a smart business decision. You never want to buy your plants at Big Box, ever, because of this. When we look at the pest comparison for the sustainable landscape, there's a total of 20 plants in that sustainable landscape. 5 out of the 20 were susceptible to pests. 5 out of the 20 were susceptible to diseases. 14 out of the 20 were resistant to both pests and diseases. Compare that to this, 11 out of 13, 10 out of 13, 13 and 6 for annuals, and 10 pests and diseases for turf. That's crazy. So when they began to evaluate the conditions, they looked at low maintenance, low water, drought tolerance, easy to grow. In the typical landscape, Big Box again, 2 out of the 12 had one or more of these conditions. In the sustainable landscape, 18 of 20 had more of these conditions. These are the costs. This is what it costs them to build these gardens. So the native garden is, of course, the sustainable garden. The traditional garden is the typical garden. The cost per square foot is $11.06 for the native garden, $7.50 for the traditional garden. And a lot of people would look at this and say, well, it's cheaper for me to put the traditional garden in. Yeah, sure. That's like buying a car that gets 5 gallons to a mile in gas mileage. It's burning up gas, it's burning up your money. In the long run, your ROI on the native garden is significantly more than on the traditional garden. So spend the extra amount of money to get this thing in and get it done right. So we're going to talk. I'm going to show you some pictures of the various gardens, the typical or traditional garden and the native garden. And I want you to emote if it really touches you. You know, if I show you the picture and you go, "Wow, that's outstanding," say it. I mean, emote. Here we go. This is the typical garden. Ooh. Really? Here's the facts about this garden. 57,000 gallons of water to manage that beautiful landscape. 670 pounds of yard waste were pulled out of there, which goes to the landfill, and it takes 80 hours of maintenance to manage that beautiful landscape, which happens to be the police station in Santa Monica. I want to show you the facts for the sustainable landscape in just a minute so we can do a comparison, but I want to show you that landscape. And again, if you feel like shouting it out, shout it out. Ooh. That landscape takes on a little bit more pizzazz when you look at the amount of water. 6,000 gallons in comparison to 57,000 gallons of water to manage this landscape. 250 pounds of yard waste in comparison to 650. And 15 hours of maintenance in comparison to 80. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be out mowing my lawn on a weekend when I could be doing something else. If that doesn't convince you, I'm going to show you the money. The typical garden, Big Box, with a spray system was using about 75,000 gallons of water a year. Drip system about 4,700. Sustainable garden with a spray head system about 33,000 gallons. Drip system about 20,000, or I'm sorry, that's wrong. That should be 2,000. So the difference in gallons is significant. And here's the money. You could save this much on a typical versus sustainable garden. So the money is there. So how do we get rid of these lawns? This is a technique called sheet mulching. And essentially what you're doing with sheet mulching is not removing the lawn. That's food for the soil critters. Leave it in there. Let the soil critters eat it up for you. If you had to take out this lawn, you would have to pay somebody to do it. It's breaking work, and you'd have to haul it to the landfill. Leave it in there. Go down to REI or a bike shop and dumpster dive for cardboard. And they'll let you have it. They got to pay to get this stuff dumped, so they'll let you have it. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday is the best time because they're getting a lot of material in for the weekend shoppers. So they usually have a lot of cardboard. And then you just lay this cardboard down and bring in a truckload of mulch and put it over the top of that thing. And you're ready to go. This is called sheet mulching. And this is your new grade. So in other words, you're going to put about 6 inches of this sheet mulch on top of that and just let the soil organisms eat the cardboard. The worms love cardboard. And don't use white cardboard, by the way. It's got a chemical in it that turns it white. You want all brown cardboard. That chemical is dioxin. When you do this, you're establishing a new grade. So you need to plant your plants accordingly. I'm going to tell you a little story about a house, a number of houses in Sunnyvale. One of my students came to me and said, Frank, can you help me with a project that I'm trying to do at my house? I said, yeah, sure. Okay, no problem. She says, I need help with the irrigation system. I can do all the other stuff, but I need your help for the irrigation system. I said, all right. So I go down to her house at 8 o'clock in the morning and she's prepared. She's got cardboard there. She's got compost there. She's got mulch. I picked up a bunch of irrigation parts. We're going to convert her spray lawn system to a drip system. And so along with her were 2 of her neighbors because they wanted to learn what we were doing. So we started to work. The neighbors started laying out cardboard. I started working on the irrigation system. She was applying compost. She put down 1 inch of compost and about 4 inches of mulch on top of this cardboard. And I was dealing with the irrigation system. By about 10:30, 11 o'clock, we were done with that. Had everything converted over. She had everything sheet mulched. It was ready to roll. Her mother was visiting from Japan, so she cooked a nice meal for us. Excellent meal. And then we came back out and we planted the entire front yard in fruit trees and vegetables. In the morning at 8 o'clock, she had turf. By 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, she had a fully functional irrigation system and vegetables and fruit trees. Her neighbors then went to their houses and did that to their houses. This street is kind of special because it's one of those streets where you drive in and then you circle around. It's a horseshoe and you come back out. There's 33 houses on that street. All 33 did this. They all got together and they formed a co-op. They're growing all their own vegetables. They don't go to the farmer's market anymore. They're growing their own vegetables. 33 houses. One house 1 year grows all tomatoes. Another one grows all herbs. Another one is great for fruit trees. Another does citrus. Another does, in the shadier areas, some of your greens. You cannot eat turf. Get rid of it. Put in veggies. You can eat veggies. If you've ever been to Whole Foods You know what they charge for vegetables. Why should you pay them when you can grow them? And that's what these people did. This co-op has been in existence for almost 11 years now. As the houses change hands, the new owners embrace this concept. It became a selling point for the house. Amazing. So anybody on real estate here, take this as a lesson. These guys did it. They changed the White House lawn to veggies. I actually know the gardener who did this job. I talked with them, and they said it was quite cool to do it. Lawn to veggies, why not? If you're not convinced of that, then do what's called a freedom lawn. Just go buy some bulbs, quit watering this thing, quit mowing it, and just plant bulbs. It's called a freedom lawn. You can actually go on to a website that has ideas about this. I think it's freedomlawns.com. This person just said, I'm done with my lawn, and overseeded it with wildflowers. Another freedom lawn. This person did the same thing using Achillea. I'm going to show you some California natives, and a lot of people object to California natives. And part of the reason is because most people don't understand that California natives are different. We have 4 seasons in our area. California natives have 5. The additional season is August. August is a transitional period with California natives. They are coming out of dormancy. The plants that you get from big box grow at the wrong time of the year, which means they need a lot of water. Natives grow in spurts when it rains. And that's why they make ideal plants for what we want to accomplish in terms of sustainability and get rid of these lawns. So I'm going to show you some really ugly natives, because a lot of people don't understand them and they don't know how to maintain them. There's a couple of good books out there on maintaining California natives. The best one is by a woman. Her name is Helen Popper. She's a member of the California Native Plant Society. If you go into cnps.org, you can purchase Helen Popper's book, and it talks to you about how to manage and maintain California natives. Ugly, wow. Don't I want that in my front yard? I actually have this one in my front yard. This is Clarkia. This is a gorgeous plant. Easy to grow. There's a couple of species that do quite well in our area. This is Arygonium. This particular plant is full sun. It's about 1 foot tall, a beautiful flower. It flowers about 8 months of the year. Easy to grow, very drought tolerant. This is Gilia capitata. It looks like fireworks. It looks like Agapanthus, but this is actually a California native. Pacific Coast hybrid native iris. These actually do not want summer water. They don't like summer water. It'll kill them. So this is an ideal plant to put in our former turf areas. It does very well. It's very drought tolerant. 11 different colors of this particular plant. The most striking of the 11 colors is the white one, and it's called Canyon Snow. It's stunningly beautiful. Lupins, if you like butterflies, bees, and pollinators, this is an outstanding plant to put. This actually can grow from seed. This one is sticky monkey flower, Mimulus guttatus. The Native Americans used to use this particular plant as a band-aid for small cuts and scrapes. Sticky, the leaves were sticky. So they stick it over their cut or scrape, and it has medicinal qualities. This is yellow-eyed grass, or Sisyrinchium. We're going to see its cousin in just a minute, blue-eyed grass. This is a great plant, full sun, beautiful bloomer, easy to grow. You can actually get seeds for this and start this from seeds. And then this is the Oregon grape, even though it is a California native. This is Berberis aquifolium. Gets about 5 feet tall as these grape-like structures. They are edible. They don't taste very well. They're really kind of mealy, but it's a beautiful plant in any garden. You should at least have one of these. This is another one. This is Calicanthus. This is called spice bush. The smell of this particular plant is very spicy. It's got a very nice aroma to it. It'll get about 6 feet tall, about 6 feet wide. It fills up a space rather nicely. When you crush the leaves, some people smell almonds. Some people smell wine that's been left out overnight. So different kinds of smells come from this particular plant. This is Carpentaria. This is the California Fuchsia, or the California Camellia, sorry. Beautiful, beautiful plant. Great bloomer. Starts blooming in about, end of February, and then blooms on into about June, and then it begins to go dormant. For some reason, this picture didn't show up. This is Cercis Oxydentalis the Redbud. I don't know why this picture never shows up. I keep putting it in there and it doesn't show up. This is called the lipstick plant, or Galvicia speciosum. This is a late bloomer. This one doesn't start blooming until about July, and then it blooms all the way into November. Mine's blooming now. Hummingbirds just love this plant, as do other pollinators. I have about 3 or 4 hummingbirds that just move in and out of my garden, and they're just fascinating to watch. And this is one of the plants that really gets them. They just love this one. Artemisia Californica, this one will get about 6-8 feet tall. There is a smaller variety called Mound San Bruno that gets about 3.5-4 feet. Stunning plant, really tough. It's called coffee berry because it gets these coffee-like berries that are a laxative. Native first peoples used to use this as a laxative. Ribosarium, beautiful plant, yellowish flowers, one of the first ones to bloom in the spring. Really an attractive plant. And this is its cousin, Ribes sanguineum. Look at that leaf. How can you go wrong with this leaf? It's a gorgeous maple-like leaf. And bonus, you get flowers. You can get reds, pinks, and whites on this one. Stunning plant, easy to grow, does quite well in the shade. I have it growing in my shade garden behind me. This is Tricostoma, or woolly blue curls. Bees, hummingbirds, they love this plant. Full all the time with pollinators. I have 2 in my garden, and they just love it out there. The hummingbirds just go nuts for this one. It blooms 13 months of the year. How can you beat that? Lona Serra, involucrata. It gets about 8 feet tall in full sun. It likes a little bit of water, but not much. This is a brute in the garden. This is a real workhorse. This is Russo Vada. I have 2 right behind me. I have a meditation garden behind me, and I use Russo Vada in my meditation garden as a way to partition off the space. This is a very good foundation plant around fence work, very drought tolerant. It gets a lovely flower, and then it forms like a capsule that is sweet. The common name for this is sugar bush, and you can take that capsule, break it off, and suck on it. In fact, the first people, when they were hunting, they used to suck on this capsule. It has a cousin, Rus integrifolia, called the lemonade berry. And it's the same thing. It gets this capsule, but it tastes like lemonade. Arctostaphyles, this is a little apple. Pick a size. You want something that's 6 inches tall. You want something that's 6 feet tall. There is an Arctostaphyles that will fit that bill. Never choose Arctostaphyles or Ceanothus according to its color. Choose it for the size of the space that you have. You don't want to prune this. These particular plants are subject to twig dieback if you prune them. So you want to buy the plant that fits the space, not the color. And these come in whites, some beautiful pinks, soft pinks to slightly reds. This is an outstanding plant, especially on in a dry, sunny area. It's very low maintenance. It stays about 3 feet tall. Gets a gorgeous little flower, and then it forms a seed that just blows in the wind. It's just beautiful when it's seeding, because the seed just goes everywhere. Very low maintenance, very easy to grow. And this is Ceanothus. Again, choose your Ceanothus according to the size of the plot that you're going to be planting it in. These do not like to be pruned. You will actually shorten their life if you prune these things. This particular variety will grow about 3 feet tall, but you can get Ceanothus low ground cover. You can get them in vines. You can get them up to 12 feet tall. If you've ever gone up the coast of California into Mendocino in the early spring, this is the plant that is wowing everybody. This is Arygonium Gigontium, stunning, stunning plant. And it has a cousin. This is Arygonium grande, white flower or red flower. Pick one. Pollinators go nuts for this particular plant. It gets about 3 feet tall and just blooms again 13 months of the year. Benstemon heterophyllus gets about 1.5 feet tall, likes a dry, sunny area. This is a very long-lived plant. You find these plants 50, 60, 70-year-old in the garden. And it's very easy to grow. Numerous colors, whites, pinks, reds, and of course this is called Margarita Bop. It's called Margarita Bop, B-O-P, back of porch. The person who propagated this plant found it growing on his back porch, so he just named it Margarita Bop. Margarita was one a relative of his, so he named it Margarita back of porch. Anything salvia, plant anything salvia. The hummingbirds like it, the pollinators like it, everybody likes it. This is the blue-eyed grass. I showed you the yellow-eyed grass earlier, Cicericium californicum. This is Cicericium bellum, another stunner. Very low grower, spreads slowly by rhizomes. It's about 8 to 10 inches tall. I have it in my front garden. It just loves it out there. I get these blooms in around June. Stunning, stunning bloomer. And this is Zauschneria. I like saying that, Zauschneria. Another late bloomer. Hummingbirds go nuts for this one also. They like these pendulous bell flowers. Great, great plant. Dendromicon draws the pollinators. This happens to be a syrphid fly. Syrphid flies eat aphids. Aphids, I like aphids. I encourage my plants to get aphids because I want to bring in the pollinators. This is a primrose, Oenothera. Gets about 4 feet tall. It likes a dry, sunny area. Beautiful bloomer. Blooms all summer long. Rhamnia culturi, or the fried eggplant. This is a plant you have to love if you're going to install it in your garden, because it'll spread like crazy. You give it some real estate, it'll fill it. Dry, sunny area. It's a great plant. I love this plant. You see this one blooming over on 280 all the time. Again, anything salvia. This happens to be Clevelandii. 13 months of the year, this one is blooming. Aesculus. This one finishes blooming about mid-August, and then it goes dormant. It drops all of its leaves, but the scaffold branching on this is beautiful to look at. It is obligate dormant. Nothing you can do is going to make this thing not go dormant. Arbutus menziesii, or the strawberry tree, it actually gets little strawberries. It likes a dry, sunny area. It gets about 12 feet tall. It's a fairly easy plant to grow. Fremontodendron, this is your wall of yellow, gets about 15 feet tall, and it is solid yellow. This is a traffic stopper. Extremely easy to grow. This is a tuck-in plant. This happens to be Aqualesia formosa. It's about 1.5 feet tall. It likes the shade. Bees have a hard time figuring out how to get in there, so they go and they cut the spurs off the back end of this, and they crawl into the back end of this particular plant to pollinate it. Dicentra or bleeding heart. This is another 1.5 feet tall. It likes shade. You see this in a lot of woodland gardens. Vaccinium ovatum. This is the Oregon or the California huckleberry. These are edible, and this particular plant has a reddish stem on it. It's quite attractive. It gets about 4 feet tall. One of the few California native plants that is tolerant of pruning. Aristolochia californica, at Striping Arboretum, one of the workers there brought back the mission, or the botanist Fillmore, which is the pipe vine butterfly, by planting this particular plant. He started bringing that particular butterfly back. Heteromeles arbutifolia. This is a toyon or Christmas berry. It gets this gorgeous foliage, or this flower, and then it blooms, or it produces a red berry right around Christmas time. So a lot of people will use this in their Christmas decorations. Prunus licifolia and its cousin. Licifolia has the prickly leaves. Lion eye has a smooth leaf. So they're cousins. They can be intermixed and planted together. They get a really nice spiky flower, quite nice. If you hike, this is what you smell out there when you're hiking. This is Artemisia Californica. You smell this one before you see it. The smell is quite pungent. It has two types of leaves. It has a winter leaf to take advantage of the winter rains, and then it drops that leaf, and then it forms a summer leaf. You're looking at the summer leaf now, which is smaller and slimmer to take advantage of drought tolerance. This is called a drought evasion technique. Shooting stars, a little tuck-in plant, like to be in shadier areas, about 1.5 feet tall. Can grow this one from a bulb too. Another monkey flower, Mimulus aurantiacus. And then this one is one that grows under redwood trees. This is called sea spray, or Holodiscus discolor. It smells like old newspapers, and you're going to smell this one before you see it. It's really quite nice. Lepichinia, everybody thinks this is a salvia. It is not. It is Lepichinia calycina. There's two species that do quite well in California, calycina and Lepichinia fragrans. It's about 4 feet tall, very strong bloomer. The pollinators love it, as do the hummingbirds. This looks like a ballerina plant. This is Ribes speciosum, about 4 feet tall, likes dry shade. So you can actually plant this one under oaks. Want something with a ripe white berry? Here you go. Snowberry, Symphylocarpus rivularis, about 4 feet tall, likes dry shade. You see this in and around oak trees. Another great dry shade plant is Garrya elliptica, or the silk tassel tree or plant, about 8 feet tall. There is a smaller tasseled version called Evie, but this is the one that gets a 12-inch tassel. So we're talking about sustainability, and your native plant palette will give you lots of sustainable plants. Sustainability is not a fad, it's here to stay. So you really need to think about what you're doing with your garden. I'm going to show you some plants that a friend of mine, some gardens that she did. Her company is Mission Blue. They're over in the East Bay. I think they're up in Oakland, Richmond area. She was a student of mine, and she does lawn conversions. And I want you to understand a few things about her. She is Bay friendly. She is QL certified. She's bonded, she's insured, and she knows what she's doing, as you will see in just a minute. So one of the things I want you to understand is that it does not say anything in the Constitution that you can you have a right to a lawn. It doesn't say anything in there. I've read it. It does not say anything in any literature that says you have to have a lawn for kids or dogs. I was a landscape contractor, and I can't tell you how many times I want a lawn for my kids. Kids never play on lawns. They don't care about lawns. This is what they do on a lawn. They don't like them. This is all pokey to her little legs. She doesn't like it. It's disappointing. It's boring. We have to get away from our love affair with lawns. We really do. Because you don't have a lawn doesn't mean there's no maintenance. This is a low maintenance landscape. That's it. This is a high maintenance landscape. This happens to be Bouchard Gardens. 85 gardeners full-time work on this garden. So the difference between this and this is how much money you got. One of the misconceptions is that kids need lawn. No, they don't. They like soil. They're curious. They like touching and exploring, and they like getting dirty. Why do you want them to play on a lawn that's full of chemicals? It never made sense to me. Kids want to hide. They want areas to play on. They want to be by themselves. They want to play with flowers. She loves me. She loves me not. How many of you ever played that game? They love flowers. You give a kid a flower and they're just smiles. Can't do that with lawns. So you want to get rid of those lawns and bring in some plants that are going to bring you some joy. Taking out your lawn does not make you the weird one on the block. Anybody know whose garden this is? You see that apple on the fence post? This is Steve Jobs' garden. He knows. So we're going to talk about some concepts. Let's talk about lawn reduction. And these are photographs from my friend from Mission Blue. She allowed me to use them in her in this slide presentation. This is a lawn reduction. This lawn really wasn't doing much, so they reduced it. They took part of it out. This is another style of lawn reduction. This lawn went right up to the house, and instead of that, they brought in a beautiful border of plantings, cut the lawn in half. It's much more attractive than what it was. This is Mission Blue's work. This is another lawn that they took out. They brought in some boulders, brought in some ceanothus, some of the other native plants. I see some rosemary back there. Much more attractive than that lawn was. This is another view of that same garden. Gorgeous, gorgeous planting. Here's another garden, another view of that same garden, using very drought tolerant plants. They sheet mulched it. They brought in boulders. They brought in a drip system. They got plants in that are very drought tolerant and installed it. This particular client wanted a patio. They didn't have a patio. They had a lawn that went right up to the house. So they put the patio in, reduced the lawn, and then they put in container plants all over. So now they have an entertainment area in which they can play. This is another idea of lawn reduction using patios. Sheet mulching. I'm going to show you what Mission Blue did with their sheet mulching. This is the owner of Mission Blue. She's putting down cardboard in this area. It used to be turf. And this is what it turned out to be. She went from turf to this. She likes using large boulders. The plants that you see in this photograph, iris, some of the achilles, some Some gorgeous plants. Looks like that's euphorbia and more achillea. So much better than that turf, and saving them lots and lots of money. Another view of that same garden as it got a little taller. This is another garden. She was laying out all of her plant material. You can see that pile of mulch that's in that front yard. They're going to haul that back and mulch this garden. She's putting in her drip system, and then she's going to mulch it out. She put in some flagstone for a walkway, soft set it. Another view of it. These rocks were existing, by the way. She didn't bring in these big rocks, but she did all the planting, the sheet mulching, and everything else. Got rid of that lawn. That lawn was doing terribly back here. It was too shady. You can see all the moss that's on those rocks. Can you imagine what that lawn was going through? Another view of that garden. Looking down on it, and another view. I show you these because these are very easy solutions to complex problems. Get rid of that lawn that's just sucking your wallet dry, and put something in that is beautiful. So a lot of cities are going to rain gardens. They're cutting the curbs. They're allowing the water to flow into their planter beds. There's a guy by the name of Brad Lancaster. He's got a great book on rain gardens and how to do it. You don't want this, but you do want this. You want all that water to get into your landscape. Cut the curb and allow it to come into your landscape and water your plants. A lot of the cities are doing it. You can do rain catchment. I don't recommend this method, but it seems to be working for her. I'm going to show you a few more pictures of Mission Blue's work. This used to be a lawn, and they put in a rain garden. This is another rain garden using a lot of succulents that they installed. If you're looking for an outstanding nursery, Devil Mountain. This is not big box. This is where the pros go. In nature, rocks and berms are there to slow water down, and so you should use rocks and berms in your landscape. If you put rock down, it slows water down so it has time to percolate into the soil and feed the plants that you want to grow in your garden. Bring in a lot of compost. Bring in some large boulders. Mound up the weeds that you have and just put them in a pile. And do this. From this to this. This picture here is about a year after it was installed. You see all that rock in there? It's actually picking up the water from the downspouts, and it's moving it slowly through the landscape so that the plants can pick it up. And so you don't have to irrigate. The magic formula is rocks, boulders, and the right kinds of plants. This used to be all turf, and they terraced it. Some very interesting use of plant material and rock. It has a nice little patio now. It's a living space instead of a water and pesticide hungry lawn. There's another shot of that same area. As is this. As is this. Again, using succulents mixed with California natives. It's a very nice look. You're seeing blue-eyed grass here, Cicericium bellum, along with anemones, or echeveria, sorry, echeveria. Another planting that used to be turf. look how the plants work so well with these boulders. A little small garden, a little pocket garden that they installed using smaller rock, drought tolerant plants. And then of course a rain garden. This is a rain garden they did over in Oakland. If you see this, you've got Bermuda grass and you may have to do some additional work on it. We'll talk about that in a minute. This is a tough one to get rid of. But this is what they did. They brought in a lot of rock. They terraformed this area. They started to set the rock in. You can see the drip system hoses on the left coming down. In the wintertime, the water comes roaring down this area on the left from the houses on the hillside behind it. So they had to figure out a way to get that water, move it in, and use it in the landscape. And so they bermed it, set in some levels, set the rock in there to slow it down. Got their drip system in, and they planted it. Got a big great all to set a big tree. And there you go. There's your big tree in there. The plant material's in there. The terraforming's done. Rocks are cheap. People are afraid of rocks. They're cheap. They do a great job moving or slowing water down in a landscape. Use them. Another view of that project. This is what nature does. Slows down water. All right. This is another job they did. This used to be all lawn. That's stunning. Way, way, way better than that ugly lawn. These are actually two houses side by side that they did. Look at the detail work in that wall. Outstanding work. All drought tolerant stuff. How pretty that is. Some native grasses. Looks like shooting stars are in there. Some great plant choices here. This is another view of it. They took out that hell strip that was all lawn and they planted it. They gave the people who were parking their cars an exit way to get out of their cars instead of that ugly turf, and put in a really nice a tree. They had to get permission from the city. And then, of course, did the landscape with a very low maintenance planting. Low water use plants, all low water use plants. You won't see these at the big box stores. This is a euphorbia. This is gopher spurge. Gophers do not like this plant. From this to this. Isn't this beautiful? God, that's gorgeous. I want to keep my lawn. No, you don't. This. Big steps. Cortan steel. Boulders. A way to get to the front door. Nice little patio. You can design it yourself. You can take this and do this on a weekend. Real simple stuff to do. All you're going to be doing is making a plan. Take this, oops, to that. Plant a dog. Always nice in the landscape. And that's it, grown in. This to that. This is a year old. This is what it was. This is what it is. Same garden, a year old, a year after it was planted. All drought tolerant, all on drip system. Same garden. Still a little bit of turf surrounding this, but they got part of it out. And put in a rain garden. This to this to this. This is a year old.
Frank, we have quite a bit of questions in the Q&A. So do you want to finish up your presentation so we can have enough time to get through all the questions?
Yep, almost done.
Okay.
Here we go.
Thank you.
Why not? Why not put a planter boxes in the front garden? Why not? 33 people in Sunnyvale did it. Grow your veggies in your front garden. City's not going to care, are you, city? No, you're not. So patience is the key. Know your soil, your climate, do berms and mounds. Let the lawn die this summer. Sheet mulch it and then plant in the fall. Take advantage of the winter rains. There is no such thing as no maintenance, but there is a lot about low maintenance. So there you go. Questions, concerns, problems, issues.
We've got a few of them here, so we'll go in order. But first of all, thank you so much. I think that it was really well received, and I know I learned a lot. Continually amazes me how strange these plant names are. Like, so I loved hearing some of the background of how they got their names.
Come to Foothill College, and you will know your plants. In fact, in the spring, we're offering 2 plant courses. So come on up.
Okay, so some of these are more detailed. There's others that are just clarifying questions. So we missed the book name that you were referring to. There was a woman that wrote a native.
Helen Popper.
Okay, Popper. So that's for Cindy. Hope you got that. Helen Popper.
Yeah, cnps.org, and she's a member of the California Native Plant Society. You'll see Helen Popper's book on there. And Amazon, of course, has it. Jeff Bezos, he wants to go back to space, you know.
Okay, so I'll take a few and then I'll hand it over to Giselle. You can answer some from the top. So is landscape fabric okay to use?
Yeah, it is, but it's not as good as cardboard. Cardboard is the best because the soil organisms can eat it. And you want to increase the amount of soil organisms in your planting systems. In lawns, the soil is dead. So you need to build it, and cardboard is a good way to do it. And it smothers the turf. That fabric is not sustainable, and the weeds will actually grow on top of it. If you're thinking that you're not going to have any more weeds, nope. The weeds will actually grow on top.
Yeah, that's good info. And I know we encourage using cardboard, but if you are going to use a fabric, we just ask that it's biodegradable.
Yeah.
So this question relates to sheet mulching. And the question is, do you plant right into the mulch?
Yeah, right into it. Yeah,
and
same day.
You'd break through the cardboard or just on top?
Yeah, take an X-Acto knife, cut an X in there, spin it back, drop your plant in the ground. Remember the new grade, because you're putting 1 inch of compost, 4 inches, 6 inches, 8 inches of mulch. So your grade changes. Yeah, that mulch is going to fluff down about 2, maybe 3 inches. But just make sure that you get that root ball at your new grade so you don't smother your plants.
Great. Yeah, so you did touch on this at the end, like talking about planting in the fall and utilizing the winter rains, but there's a question that it pertains to what is the best season or month to do this conversion. I was hoping maybe you could speak a little bit more to these dry conditions that we've been experiencing as well.
Yeah, summer is the best time to do it. Summer into fall. The best time to plant is fall or early spring. So if you want to sheet mulch your lawn, do it now, with the idea that in spring you're going to be planting, especially if we start to get some of the spring rains. So about February or March is an excellent time to get your plants in the ground, because you want to leave that sheet mulch, you want to leave that turf alone for about 2 or 3 months and let that turf die. and let the soil organisms eat it up and build up beautiful soil. You're going to be stunned when you pull back that sheet mulch and look at that soil. It's like, what a miracle. It's amazing what this process does to soil. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and like you said at the end, it takes a little bit of patience. Like if you want to
Yeah.
kill the grass over the summer and then plant in the fall, and
you can't build a landscape in one day. It takes years. My landscape is constantly evolving. I'm a plantaholic, so. Yeah.
Okay, I'll ask one more question and I'll pass it to Giselle. This is from Pratibha, and it's what kind of mulch is used for mulching?
The cheapest. So if you can get a guy who is trimming trees, ask him for clean mulch or clean chip. You don't want chip that's got a lot of garbage in it, so you ask him for clean chip, and they will drop it at your house for free. So, and if you want to buy it, you can buy Arbor Mulch. Linkso Garden Materials has Arbor Mulch, which is chipped trees. Linkso buys it from or gets it from the tree trimmers and then sells it right back to you at a profit.
Yeah, that answers a few questions. So you don't need the fancy type of mulch. You can just get chopped trees, and where you can get trucks of mulch is what was the company? Chip Drop?
Chipdrop.com. You can go to that website and they will you just sign up, tell them what you want, and they'll bring it to you. They'll load up your driveway. Yes, they will.
Awesome. Okay, Giselle, want to take a few questions?
Yeah. So someone is wondering, what are the pros and cons of using succulents?
No, well, they don't like to be overwatered. You can rot them out. When you're doing succulents, you just want to stick your pinky in the soil and make sure that it's a little on the moist side, but not wet. And you want to keep the mulch away from the crown of the succulent. Succulents are really easy to grow. Succulents, and there's a place down in Santa Cruz area, succulent, I can't remember the name of it, but that's all they sell is succulents. It's phenomenal. It's a great field trip, by the way. Annie's Annuals also has a ton, if you guys know Annie's Annuals. And Annie sold, actually, and they have a new owner up there. So answer your question.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I definitely struggle with overwatering my succulents.
Yeah, don't overwater them.
All righty. So Susan asks if you have a site where we can find the list of plants that you were listing in your slide deck.
Yeah, this site, because you guys have recorded it and I can send you the list. Didn't I send you the list once before? I thought I did. If not, I'll send you the list.
Yeah, that'd be great. I know some attendees were wondering if the slides would be available, but the presentation is being recorded, so you will have access that way. We'll share the recording afterwards with everyone that registered for the webinar.
And CNPS, you can go to their website. All the plants I'm talking about are on their website.
All righty, great, thanks. So someone is asking if you can clarify the plant water requirement terms that you used during presentation, like drought tolerant, low, medium, high water use. And they're asking if low water labeled plants require any additional water at all.
All of the California natives need water to become drought tolerant. It takes them about 1 year to 2 years before they become established. So you're in the beginning, when you are planting natives, you're going to be watering them some, not as much as the exotics that you would get at big box. Those are going to demand a lot of water all the time. whereas the California natives need a little water to get themselves established. Once they're established, they're on their own. Some of the smaller rooted, small sized plants, they might need water 6 or 7 times a year, and that's about it. So along about July, August, September, our hottest months, you might have to go out and spritz them some, but most of them are fairly drought tolerant. Most of the California natives, and I'm not talking about the riparians, the one that grow in and around water, because there are a lot of riparian type California natives. You want the woodland type, depending on your soil type, or you want plants that are low water use. If you go to the Wuckols site, and that's WUCOLS, they have a lot of plants with the water requirements in their website. So you can go, and I'll put it in the chat. Wuckols. And that means water use classification of landscape species. So, all right, next.
Great, thank you. And someone is wondering what are alternatives to mulching that they mentioned that using like a leaf blower will displace the mulch.
You can use gravel. You can use pea gravel. A lot of people like using pea gravel. And if you have a garden janitor that's out there using a blower, you want to beat him. I'm sorry to say, you want to beat him. You don't want him blowing your mulch away. Find somebody that knows what they're doing. We never hauled away leaves that were in softscape. We cleaned up the hardscape, and we blew all the leaves into the planter bed areas, because that's free mulch. So if you've got a garden janitor that's blowing that stuff around and such, get rid of them. Find somebody that knows what they're doing. Pretty harsh, aren't I?
Speaking the truth.
The truth.
All right.
I hate blowers. And I have one on my back today. Well.
I'll ask one more question and then pass it back to Megan.
Right.
So someone is wondering whether ice plants are recommended.
As long as you're not putting them on a slope. Ice plants on a slope will fill up with water and pull the slope down. Ice plants are nice. They do a pretty good job in our area. They do a lot better when they're near the water, specifically the ocean, but they'll do in inland areas. They do all right. Not my favorite, but you know, I don't hate it either.
You're knocking these questions out, and attendees, please keep them coming. Please direct them also to the Q&A versus the chat, but you feel free to type anything in the chat as well that is not question related. All right, so the next question is, where can we buy the California native plants, and what is the reason for slight reluctance in using California natives?
A lot of people don't know how to manage them. Your strategy for managing natives has to change because they grow when it rains. They're dormant when it's hot. And so you need to understand that concept so that you understand pruning, if you're going to be pruning them, irrigating them. And that's why I recommend Helen Popper's book. She talks about that, lays it all out. So a lot of people are reluctant because they don't know how to maintain them. And of course, the garden janitors are clueless. They're killing natives by the dozens. And that's why a lot of the natives in gardens look so bad. You can always tell when a professional is maintaining them. In fact, you guys at Alameda County, you've got a pretty nice native garden, if I remember. Last time I was there, you planted your whole front area and it looks good.
Yes, that's a great point. We do have a demonstration garden up at the front of our headquarters located in Fremont, where several of you are calling in from. And
Absolutely.
It's one of the best places to get inspired by plants. You can see what they look like in certain types of the season. California Fuchsia is right along the street there, a bright pink plant. And they also have commercial sections and residential. So if you have a business, you can look at like some of the more formal commercial sites. But there's also one in Quarry Lakes, which is a great, beautiful demonstration garden as well. And I saw someone ask about tours. We do partner with the Bringing Back the Natives Garden Tour, which is half virtual and half in person this year. So you can choose your adventure, I guess. But they have some really great, awesome resources online, like videos from last year, and you can walk around different gardens in the Bay and again, get inspired, talk to the other homeowners. So that should be coming up in early 2022.
Yeah, that's a great tour. I usually go on the one here on the peninsula and then go to the East Bay and go to that one. Great tour.
Oh, wow. Okay. So there's one on the peninsula too then.
Oh yeah. We have a real nice one over here. Yours is a little bit different than ours over here. The bee garden that Dr. Gordon Franke has over there is just unbelievable. And that was on the Going Native tour, well, I guess about 4 or 5 years ago. I was over at Gordon's garden. Stunning. Talk about an impressive garden to bring in the pollinators. And a great book too, Gordon Franke, what's it called? Bloom, I think. It's back there in one of my stacks.
One of your several books. Nice. Well, it got a little distracted there, but why don't we knock out some more of these? What did you mean by changing grades while planting into the cardboard mulch layer?
Well, you're going to put down cardboard, 1 inch of compost, and 4, 6, 8 inches of mulch. You're making a grade change. So your new grade when you're planting has to conform to the amount of mulch that you have down.
Good point. Okay, that makes sense. If there's any clarifying questions, feel free to add them. So are using river rocks, stones, pavers, dry riverbeds okay or recommended?
Oh yeah, they're perfect. They look great in the landscape. They slow water down. Yeah, Brad Lancaster's book, get that one, Rain Gardens, outstanding book. And he does talks in this area if you ever get a chance to see him. Great guy. So whatever rock you can find, you use it. If you can find free rock, urbanite, broken pieces of concrete. I have a good friend who uses nothing but broken pieces of concrete.
Oh, wow. Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is I see a lot of times our rebate customers use the rock right up to the base of the plant, right? And that you want some space, right?
Yeah, you don't do that. Yeah, you'll kill the plant.
So hope that helps.
And don't put them under oaks. No.
Okay, sorry. This one says, what is Acwd's timeline for sheet mulching to planting? Can take several months for the project and still get your rebate. So I'll take this one. We do ask that customers complete their project within 90 days. However, we know that things change and you may need an extension. So if you are choosing to sheet mulch, you should apply before you start any of the work so we can have your documentation and grant you a notice to proceed, which is basically verifying that we'll hold the rebate funds for you. And then if you need more time, you can ask for a rebate. So that 90 days is somewhat flexible if you need the time to sheet mulch. All right, so just have a few more minutes here, but Giselle, do you want to ask some more questions, please?
Yeah, let's do it. So let's see. David asks if you have any recommendations for nurseries around the Fremont area that carry the California natives or carry many of the plants that were mentioned during your presentation.
Fremont, I don't know. There is, what's the name of the nursery over in Berkeley? I can picture the owner. There's a really good native nursery over in Berkeley. Annie's Annuals carries a lot of natives. There's a Capital Wholesale in San Jose if you want to go down that way. Yerba Buena in off of Highway 92 is one of the best ones in the area. Kathy's been doing Yerba Buena for about 45 years now, and she's got some great natives. Not familiar with a lot of the nurseries over in the East Bay. Wilds, what's it? Wild, something Wilds. Pete Valou is the guy's name I'm thinking of. And he's got natives over in Berkeley. I can't remember the name of that nursery. Really good stuff though. I know I've known Pete for a long time.
Great. Thanks for those recommendations. Jenny asks, what plants do you recommend for slope erosion prevention?
Baccharis pilaris is a real good one. That's coyote bush. I show the picture of that one. That is an outstanding plant for erosion control. It's got a really good root system and a lot of greenery to slow down that water before it hits the slope. So that's a real good choice. I would use that one. I would also use if you want to put in a Ceanothus or a Artistaphyles, those also work. Romnea culturi or the fried eggplant works on a slope. Ribes, any of the ribes work. Ribes aureum, sanguineum, they all work. Arygoniums, great plants, very good for using on slopes, and it brings in a lot of pollinators. The butterflies like Arygoniums a lot.
Great. Thank you. So next question. Sarah is wondering if you could talk a little bit more about how to get rid of Bermuda grass.
Great question. So Bermuda grass has this helicopter-like seed head. It's very distinct. If you Google Bermuda grass and look at some of the drawings, you'll see that seed head. When you're sheet mulching Bermuda grass, you want to use 2 layers of cardboard, not one. So you're going to layer one way, and then you're going to layer the other way. So you might go east-west, and then you're going north-south with your cardboard. You want to do a double layer because it can break through that single layer of cardboard. It usually takes a little longer for Bermuda grass to get killed along the edges of your sheet mulch. So when the sheet mulch meets the sidewalk, that's where you're going to have the most problem. And you want to use a herbicide, and you want to use a herbicide that is friendly. Don't use glyphosate or Roundup, not good stuff. You can use a product called Eco-Exempt, and it's Eco-Exempt HC, which means herbicidal concentrate. It smells like clove. It is a food grade oil. You can also use phenolcin, which is wintergreen oil. And the last one is Burnout 2, and that is a camphor oil. And that will knock those that Bermuda grass down. I've tried vinegar on it, and it kind of works, but kind of doesn't. So you take vinegar, you go to Costco, and you get the 2 big jugs of vinegar, and you put some dishwashing detergent in that, and spray it on your weeds, and it kills most weeds. It will kind of knock Bermuda down, but it won't totally kill it. So the 3 chemicals that I mentioned are very friendly to the environment, and they won't hurt you. And they will kill your plants that you don't want. And you can get that stuff on Amazon. Amazon is selling it. Bezos sells everything. My goodness. Oh, why not? Somebody's got to do it.
All right. Thank you for that explanation. Next question. Should we plan for plants to overlap with their max growth spread? Otherwise, the plants might be really apart. We are also seeing different expected growth spreads on different websites.
So we have what's called design height and mature height when we talk about plants. Design height is 3/4 of mature height. So when you're planting, you want to use the design height with the idea that you want your plants to grow together eventually. I guess you can't see my hands, grow together eventually. And then you're just going to be doing some editing. So I'll give you an example. If you were using Salvia clevelandia and you were planting them from 1 gallon size, well, that plant is going to get 8 feet by 8 feet. It's going to get big. So while you're waiting for that plant to get big, put in some grasses that you're going to remove later on. Grasses are what are called successional plants. They'll help build the soil. They'll keep the weeds down, and grasses are cheap. A lot of the nurseries are selling the native grasses cheap. The idea is you're going to either take them out or move them around. So you can take that kind of a strategy, and that works pretty well.
All right, thank you.
Okay, yeah, we're over time, but I know we can maybe answer 2 more questions, and then any further questions, we will be sending out an email. So
Do I get paid overtime?
yeah, right. Let's see. So Vanya says our front yard has a huge city tree that produces tons of spiky balls. Sweet gum tree ?
Liquid
Can
amber.
What was that?
Liquid amber.
Maybe.
My microphone messed up.
That's what you think it is?
Yeah, liquid amber.
Okay. So can we still put native plants and the native grass underneath it?
Oh yeah, yeah, they won't mind that. Yeah. It'll cut down on having to haul those things away. They'll just become part of the nutrient base of the soil.
Okay, last question. Evelyn asks, can we use house compost from our kitchen scraps for the compost?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that works great. There's a number of ways you can use kitchen scraps. There's the Bokashi method, Bokashi, and with that method, you can actually throw meat scraps in there and the organisms will eat that. And that's a composting method that you can use everything in the kitchen in that one. If you're doing conventional composting, veggies and such going into a compost pile, yeah, that works very well. The soil organisms love that. Got the hiccups. Wonderful.
Okay, well, I think we'll call it there then. And thank you so much, Frank, for all your knowledge and spending time with us, answering all these questions. And I've seen several positive comments in the chat, just that really lots to take away from this. And thank you for all participating and joining us online to learn about these drought hacks, and the recording will be made available to all the people that registered shortly. And I hope you all have a good night. Thank you all so much.
Yep. Take care. Stay healthy.
Okay, bye everyone.
Bye-bye.